Today we're talking about why most producers get stuck looping the same 8 bars and the unusual way pros finish their tracks up to 5 times faster. So you might have a killer idea, but every time you try to turn it into a full song, it just falls apart. Thankfully, following this 80-20 rule of arrangement will be your new shortcut to escaping that 8-bar prison. Now, I've been producing music for over 15 years, and I've recreated dozens of Beatport Top 10 tracks, and I was shocked to find that every single one follows this same method. So in this video, I'm going to break it all down. This is the proven 3-step framework for arranging quickly. And to make all this even easier, I've put together a free song finishing toolkit with checklists, samples, and racks for you to grab in the description. But to get started here today, we'll be looking at a professional project file based on one of James Hype's many Beatport #1 productions. To follow along at your own pace or dive in deep to the details, you can download this video's project files as well as over 30 full project files inspired by Beatport Top 100 songs, with new files being added weekly. Just visit the link on screen or in the description. All right. So before I kind of let this loop go and we rip through the track, there's a couple things that I want to point out. So one of the first things is, really big key here is to have a reference track. So we have a reference track in here, and this way you can kind of build your track up against this. And one of the big things is also building out this arrangement track. So you can see what I've used is dummy MIDI clips, just empty MIDI clips, while listening to this track, to map out the larger sections of the track. So where the sub comes in, the breaks, the drops, the intro, the outro, all that kind of stuff. And so these larger changes are something that I call macro transitions. So you can think of them almost like in traditional boring songs like verse, chorus, like pop structure like that, but with the structure of like dance music. And so by doing this, you'll be able to quickly map out an arrangement that clearly works. It's done by a professional track. And then by also having it in the arrangement track here, it's a very quick visual that you can use to quickly reference as you're building out your track. So the idea is to build up the track vertically, the drums, the bass, the synths, all that kind of stuff, get a full multi-layered sounding kind of loop. And then once you have that built up vertically, you can use this arrangement track to very easily extend it out horizontally. The next thing is micro transitions. So those are things like that change. I should also say the macro transitions happen every 32, sometimes 16 bars, but usually 32, 64 bars. Larger changes that happen over time that are a lot more obvious. Micro transitions happen usually, maybe sometimes 4 bars, but usually 8 or 16 bars. And it's small things like the kick being dropped out for a moment, or a little bit of a swell, or some kind of ear candy laser happening, those kind of things that keep the track dynamic and moving and changing over time, because a lot of this music can be very repetitive. So the idea is to have these small changes happening, very subtle small changes happening, so that there is some movement. So with that said, I'm going to go through this, I'm going to let the loop run, and I'm going to just speak through it, kind of give a director's commentary, and try to explain as much as I can, going through the arrangement as possible, so you can apply this to your own tracks. This project file will be available, so if you want to dive into anything a little bit more particular, there will be a link, I believe it's the second link in the description, and you can get access to that. With that said, let's jump into this. So first is 16 bars of the intro, and so this is mostly just for the DJ to be able to mix into it. It's just drums. The first 16 bars, the kick has a bit of lows removed, and then after that, it's a lot more full. We've also introduced that hi-hat, and we have a slowly swelling vocal bit going on here. Not a lot of synths or anything like that happening, but we all have these reverse crashes and reverse swells into a crash just to goodbye in the next spot, a little bit of a downlifter. And then at this point, the sub's kicked in. So you can now hear that the sub is playing, and we're slowly adding in a little bit of these little synth kind of stabs. Second half of this bit, so first 16 half, we had like that. And second half, we added in a little bit of ride, which increases the energy. Bring up the volume on this. That's what that sounds like. Then we have a kind of reverse crash and a swell going into this break. And so at this point, we've removed some of the lows of the kick to drop down the energy, and we're swelling up the vocal a bunch, and then we're gonna have a little dropout right before. So we were slowly bringing in this snare roll, and then had a cool little kick fill. Now we're in the first full drop, which is gonna go over the course of 32 bars, and we have a vocal coming in, which is the biggest change here. second half, we've added in another ride and added in some of that kind of ear candy little, those weird kind of sounds. That's newer in the second half. And we're gonna have a swell going into this next break. It's a longer break because this was over the course of 32 bars. Find usually in arrangements, if like you could see smaller break, largest break, kind of very common. So we've removed the kick completely this time. We're swelling down the vocals. We're going to swell them back up. We've also introduced this pad, which is filling out the sound in the break, which is important to do. And we have these kind of like swelly riser sounds coming in. And you can see dropped out a bunch of the elements right before. That's a nice little trick. And now we're into the second drop where this goes over the course of 64 bars. At this point, we've introduced this kind of synth thing that's happening a lot more, filling up the sound. And this kind of like stabby sound as well. The laser's happening every now and again. Weird little dropout that I just thought sounded freaking cool. It just kind of cuts it up there. Now we're going into the second 60 bars. So quickly high past the kick for a second as a little transition. And now in the second half, the vocals are in fully. Then this next 16 bars add some synths. And the ride. So the first half there was one ride, now I have two rides playing. Slowly increasing the energy, keeping things changing. Now we're going into this big ass break. So at this point, just the kick playing by itself with the vocal. Bass is still playing. And we're introducing the pad as well. So after the first 16 bars, we're going to drop the kick out. Bass has been high passed, so we're reducing the energy. Vocals are kind of like doing that repeating sound, which is really cool as a transition. And the pads are slowly swelling more and more and more. Little drop sound. We have this 909 roll. It's going to add a lot to the build up here. Slowly adding more information with the synths. So you can see it's more sparse here, it's more dense here. Dropped out the bass there completely, so it's kind of bringing the energy down a little bit, but it's also bringing the energy up because the snare roll is happening. And then a sustained, like kind of one single note. Shoot! Bless me. You can hear just the energy's rising, snare's building up. We have this sweep up thing, a reverse crash, a little pause right before. And then almost like a pre-drop. So the kick's in full, the bass is in, and a little bit of like weird noises, that kind of sounds. And then we're gonna go into the full drop after a little tiny break. And now we're in the last drop. So pretty much everything's playing here. Except for the vocal for the first 32 bars, or 16 bars. Let's have a look at this weird little dropout here. So let the kind of the synth swell in during that part. Just cool little trick. Now we're in the second half. Just kind of high pass the kick a little bit as a little kind of like trick transition. And then now the vocals are in at this point, so the energy is increasing. We're adding in rides here. Next 16 bars, add an additional ride. Trying to keep the energy increasing and changing over time. And then we're going to get into the build down. So we're going to start doing a kind of little trick with the vocal. And this is the part where DJs might start building in the next track. So you kind of want to start removing some of the information here and bringing the energy down in the track. So we're slowly going to be removing elements as opposed to what we were doing before. We're just slowly adding more elements, bring things in. So now all the rides are gone. The vocals are pretty much gone completely. Slowly swelling up as a little trick. It's basically just the drums and bass playing. And then we go into 16 bars of the outro, which is usually, it's very kind to just keep this as 16 bars of pretty much just drums, as little melodic information as possible generally, so that the DJ can mix in the next track really easily. So just slowly removing the information. So we got rid of a bunch of like the most main driving hi-hats. And then we're going to remove some of the claps. Just slowly dropping down the energy with a little reverse crash going to the end. Hi, my friend, Matt for Best Friends Club here. And if you've been paying attention, then you've probably figured out what the 80-20 rule is when it comes to arranging or structuring your songs. Now, the goal here is to get 80% of the result with only 20% of the time, energy, and effort. And because the first key to the 80-20 rule of arrangement is to use a reference track, we're making sure that we're effortlessly hitting 80% of a track that's been professionally arranged. In particular, we use that reference track to focus on the bigger macro transitions so that we can arrange our songs horizontally very quickly. However, we do need to make sure that we follow the 3-step process by first choosing the reference track and then following it to build out our loop vertically. This way that when we start to build things out horizontally, we have plenty of layers to work with when we're arranging. The second key is to create an arrangement track with empty MIDI clips, so we have a visual guide that we can quickly glance at to make fast and proven song finishing decisions. The third and final key is to quickly and easily make sure your songs stay interesting over time and have a fantastic flow by saving a library of templates, effects, and other sounds that can be used as micro transitions. If you'd like to get a head start by downloading all the racks, templates, and all the files that you've seen me use in the Ableton project file for this video, or if you'd just like to take a closer look at any of the techniques or tracks you saw me work on in this video at your own pace, you can find a link to this video's project files on screen now and at the second link that's in the YouTube description. I'm recreating a different song from the Beatport top charts every single week and making the project files available to anyone who wants them. You'll also get access to a private Discord where you can ask me and the community questions, as well as share tracks for feedback. If you or your music are not quite ready for a shot in the arm like that, I've also made you a completely free bundle of templates, samples, and special bonuses that have helped me figure out how to completely finish one new song each and every single week. And you can grab that free Ultimate Song Finishing Toolkit by visiting the first link that's in the YouTube description here. However, if you just feel like staying on YouTube for now, that's totally fine. Save that link for later and check out this playlist filled with videos just like this one where I arrange and structure songs from the Beatport top charts. Or if you really want to take what you've learned in this video to the next level, then check out this video right here.